Hello everybody, my name is KingSongbird of Gamer Headlines and allow me to present to you Hearthstone Heroes of Warcraft. Well, what is Hearthstone? Well, it is Blizzard Entertainment's free-to-play card collecting game which shares parallels with its World of Warcraft universe. You may be able to tell from the aesthetic. In Hearthstone you can buy cards, collect cards, and even craft cards as well, and also attend the arena, practice and play modes. This is the main menu that you'll go into once you finish yourself for the tutorial, which flings you into the whole thing rather spectacularly. In the play, you get your regular play modes, and you also get ranked or ladder. In the practice, you pretty much go against the AI in different variation of difficulties. The normal or expert versions. Two difficulties use different sets of cards, which we'll get to a bit later, and of course the arena, which is basically like the higher you get in the arena, the more rewards you reap, sort of thing. Let's have a look at the options menu, shall we? Needless to say, it's fairly minimalistic, because my theory on it is that they were later going to bring this to tablet devices, which they have all over the world right now. For the iPad, I believe the Android and iPhone versions are also in the work now. For graphics settings, you don't really get that much at all. You only get low, medium, and high, and the only difference in between the three that I notice is that it switches between all various graphical particles, such as mist, and it switches off anti-aliasing and also decreases your frame rate between low and high. Low has it capped at 30, whereas high allows you to have a higher frame rate. But aside from that, the general aesthetic and graphic style of the game doesn't actually change. Pardon me. And then over here you actually get your volume sliders. There's only two, as you can see, one for the music and one that controls the whole thing. There's no separate slider for various sound effects. These are the only two options that you get. Aside from that, if you attend different ranked ladder sessions through seasons, you can unlock different card backs for your cards, which is actually kind of nice. I like that little detail. You can switch between them. I haven't unlocked any at the moment, as you can see, but there's an event going on right now for this season there. If you play ranked, you should be able to unlock it. At least that's why I believe. I could be wrong on that. Okay, what do we have here? We have the gold counter. This is where you keep your gold. You can win gold by either winning in the arena or you can win gold by playing 3 games in a row and win 10 gold each time. And you also get the My Collections tab, where every single card that you own is archived in this sort of library between all the different heroes that you get in Hearthstone. We'll get to that a bit later. Open Packs tab, which obviously speaks for itself. As you get a new pack of cards, this is where you need to go to open up. The quest log, where all your statistics are held. As you can see, the amount of total wins that I've made. Total wins that I've won, 401, that's pretty cool. The highest runs I've done in the arena, number 8, I haven't done that many far, and this is the statistics of all the heroes that are in the game. There's 9 in total, and the highest I've got right now is the Paladin. And down here, you have your daily quests. They stack up one by one until you get a maximum of 3 each day, every 24 hours. And and each one renews every 24 hours, but it does so individually. If I completed one today, that one would renew 24 hours later. If I completed 2 today, only one would renew 24 hours later. If you're not particularly happy with the selection you have, you can just click on the red X here and then refresh it for a new one. The same thing will still happen if you complete that one. It will then refresh the next day. However, like I said earlier, it's the maximum of 3. You cannot go beyond here. You can only get a maximum total of 3. And because it's a free-to-play title, there is obviously microtransactions involved. There's only one free-to-play route. You can buy one pack of export cards for 100 gold by, like I said earlier, by completing several games in a row or getting it high in the arena, or you can spend money and get more packs as such. As it says down here, every content of each pack has at least 5 cards in total, and at least one of them would be a rare or better card. There are 4 different rarities in types in Hearthstone. There's the rare, there's a common, rare, epic, and legendary. We'll get to them in a second. As far as I know, Blizzard are not implementing any other sort of free-to-play route for the rest of the paywalled packs. So far, you can only buy one. I do not want to buy that. I'm terribly sorry. So what I would like to see for here, I would like to see at least a quantity of how much of the 100 gold packs you can buy, like a little quantity meter of how much you can get. You could say you manage to do well and save up 500 gold. You want to buy 500 free packs, that brings up to 5 packs. So you click on the counter, say it was here, click on the counter there, and there you go. I would like to see that extrapolate across, but so far I don't think Blizzard will be doing that sort of thing, at least for the time being. Actually, as it turns out, all you have to do is just double click on the 100 gold option and you'll be brought with a pop-up asking for what kind of quantities you want to buy with free gold. That's what the pop-up window was earlier. I didn't know that until going through post-editing. Down at the bottom here you got your rather convenient local time respective of your time zone, and you have your friends list of everyone that you have in your friends list across your Battle.net account. So let's head into the practice for right now. This is where you can select your custom decks. We'll create our own deck in this video in a moment, but let's head over to what kind of heroes we can play with. These are the heroes that you can choose in Hearthstone. You can either choose the Warrior, Shaman, Rogue, Paladin, Hunter, Druid, Warlock, mage and Priest, and each one of them have their own hero power as indicated by the little circle by the right. Each one is used differently. Some have some hero powers allowed to heal, such as the Priest. Some are more tanky, such as the Warriors. Some are a bit middle ground, like the Druids, which allow for attack and armor. Some is more direct damage, some is a bit more versatile damage, and one is just simply for spawning more minions into the field. Like I said, each one has its own versatility. You can also choose between what kind of AI level you want, like I said earlier, between normal or expert. I believe because it's been a while since I played practice mode, that in normal setting they use just normal cards that's spellbound to the deck. We'll get into that kind of terminology later. And expert is we use higher up cards, such as that you'd get in an expert pack deck. That's why I believe is the case. As we head into play, the same sort of similar setup, except you can choose between what kind of play you want to do. Casual is very much how it sounds. You just go in with the deck that you have and just go against whoever comes against you without any risk of losing your rank, and just rack up gold as that. However, you go into ranked play, you level up from 25 levels, that's from 25 up to 1. And it's like any other sort of ladder game, whereas the better you do, the more games you win, the higher up the rank you get. The highest I've ever gotten is 13, and I'm 3 stars heading off of getting into 13. You start off at level 25, that's 2 stars, and you go up to 20, that becomes 3 stars, and then 15, that becomes 4 stars, then 10, I assume that becomes 5 stars, and then 5, which becomes 6 stars, and then up to number 1, which I believe is the legendary rank. I haven't gotten that far, so you may have to take my word for it. And also you get the option to choose the preset decks in this area as well. Head back to the arena just so we can get into it. You need to pay a fee to get in here. You can either pay your way in using real money or game you've accumulated over time. In the arena, you choose between three different heroes, and then once you've picked the one that you have, you'll be presented with 3 different cards. You'll be presented with 3 different cards until you fill up your entire deck. I'll give you a demonstration in the My Collections tab whilst we build our own deck. To the right here we see the maximum of 9 different decks that we can see. I've built 2 so far. And around here we see all the different cards specific to heroes. Every single hero has their own specific spellbound card. Spellbound mean by the ones that you either unlock by leveling your hero or are available to the hero that you play as you start the game. The more you play a hero in the early game, the more cards you unlock for said hero. For example, if you get your hero up to level 10, you have unlocked all their spellbound cards. That's respective for all of them. But Each hero also has expert cards that are respected to them as well. For example, this common card here it's not spellbound, and I can disenchant it or create one if I so desire. And over here we have our neutral cards, which can be used for any deck. The hero has their own deck-specific cards. Neutral cards can be used in any deck. And as you can see, I've accumulated quite a fair bit. I believe there's over just under 3,500 cards in total. And I haven't got that much altogether because I went on a bit of a disenchanting spree and accumulate as much dust as possible, arcane dust, to craft a legendary card, which we'll get into now. As I said earlier, there are 4 different types of cards. We have common cards, which are basically the most cards that you'll see throughout the game. They're represented by the little... Hold on, if I'll find one. Well, they're represented by the little white gem here in the center. You also get rare cards, which are represented by a blue gem, such as here. And then you get your epics, which are represented in purple. Legendaries are represented in orange, but I do not... Actually, I do have a legendary card in tab, sorry. Are represented in orange. Because I took part in the open beta, I was awarded with this card because I spent real money in the shop. If you spent money in the shop too during the beta, you would have received this card as well. So those are the 4 different types of cards that you can get in Hearthstone, as well as the spellbound ones, which I've mentioned earlier, are unlocked by part of the course of playing which hero that you'd like. Down here you have a filter system for how much each card costs, and by costs I mean the mana the mana that they use to be played onto the field. Each card has their own mana cost, as you can see with the numbers represented in the top left corner of each card, as you've seen throughout the times I've been flipping through this book. Obviously, there's a maximum of 10 mana throughout the game. That's the mechanic that you play. And as the game goes on, you then play a card with the amount of mana that you have. So for example, if you have 6, play down to 4, that's 1 down, and then you have 2 mana left, you can play down 2 1 mana cost cards or 1 2 mana cost cards, and that's how that basic thing works. And you can switch between from 0 all the way to plus 7, because you do get cards that have very specific... You do get cards that are played under specific circumstances. For example, if we head into the crafting section and find the Molten Giant, it costs 20 mana, but you can only have 10. But as you can see down here, it costs 1 less for each time your hero is taking damage. So if you've taken down 10 health at the maximum of 30, you'll be able to play this card once you've reached 10 mana. Each card has its own not each card. Most cards have their own respective abilities. For example, you get taunt cards, which put up a shield around them, and your opponent can only attack that card until that card is destroyed. However, that is only if you're attacking directly. You are not protected against any spells if you have any direct damage. Spells can be used directly onto you if your opponent so desires. You get various different kind of direct damage things upon saying that. You do get spell cards that do board clear kind of damage or just direct damage as such, and each of them have their own respective abilities as well. For example, Hammer of Wrath deals 3 damage but also draws a card as well. But Consecration deals 2 damage to all enemies. Some other cards deal damage, some other spell cards deal damage to the entire board, including yours, or some do an immense amount of damage entirely, such as to a big minion they have in the field or directly to your face. Further down here, you can also switch between a different kind of card. Wow, 3 different kinds of different cards? Wow, good one. So you can switch between basic set, which I said earlier. These are the spellbound cards for each deck, for each deck hero, and also for spellbound cards for the neutral ones. These are your primary cards they can use. or no matter what you can do, you cannot disenchant these cards. Expert sets are ones that you've bought in expert packs, and therefore these ones can be disenchanted if you so desire. And promo sets, like it's one I presented earlier, is the one I was rewarded with spending money during the open beta. Reward sets, I do not actually know. I believe you have to reach certain milestones in order to be rewarded them. I think if you collect all the pirate cards that are in this game, you're rewarded with a card, but since I have not done it yet, I cannot specifically tell you that. Okay, so let's go a little bit more detail on the crafting. As I said earlier, use arcane dust to craft your cards. Once you go into crafting, each card has its own respective cost. Common cards cost 40 to create and 5 to disenchant. As you can see here, respective by this little nice feature down here. I can create one if I so desire, but I will be able to disenchant it for 5, which is a major loss if you pick the wrong one. So if you're going to craft a card, I suggest that you pick the card wisely. So common cards craft for 40 and disenchant for 5. Rare cards create for 100, disenchant for 20. Epics, if we use the search bar down here, epics create for 100. No, they create for 400, sorry. And they disenchant for 100. Legendaries create for 1600. Oop, there's no M in legendary, I apologize for that. There's also... There we go. And legendary cards cost 1600 and disenchant for 400. As you can see, that's what I'm trying to achieve right now by disenchanting most of the cards I had early on today at the time of recording. Should you want to disenchant a card, all you have to do is right click on it and then just simply disenchant as such. And there you go. You get a maximum of 2 cards each in Hearthstone. If you open up an expert pack and you happen to get another card of 2 you already have, you then be able to disenchant that card automatically by an option that appears here. As you can see, because I do not have a third card of the 2 that of the maximum you can have, this option is not here. But if such a circumstance should happen, it will be indicated by a jiggling bar of arcane dust in the top here, left of the crafting mode tab. And when that appears, you simply click on it and you'll be brought to a menu where it accounts for each card that is extra and then gives you a grand total at the top, at the bottom, and disenchant those, and you'll be amounted to your total arcane dust down here. In the crafting menu, you can also choose to include soulbound cards, but personally I wouldn't see the point in that because that just causes much clutter, and that's just not really, doesn't really see the point in that. And also you have a choice to filter between golden cards. Golden cards are basically very flashy cosmetic foils for the cards you already have. You may have seen them whilst flicking through the book. Some of my cards had a golden back to them and they were slightly animated and shiny. If I can find one properly. As you can see here, this card is golden and it is animated and it looks really nice, and I kind of like how Blizzard have implemented that sort of nice foil cosmetic for it. And they also disenchant for a lot more as well compared to its non-golden foil counterpart, but it also costs a hefty amount to create one as well. So should you want to build an entire gold deck, you just need to save up a lot of arcane dust to do it, but it is doable. It's also worth mentioning that you can also get gold versions of heroes as well after completing 500 rounds in ranked mode. However, if you do wish so, everything will be a lot more expensive. So if you want to create a common card, a golden common card, you cost 40 arcane dust, which is just insane. So, and just extrapolate that across all the different types, epic, rare, and legendary, and it'll be quite expensive. I believe legendary costs 32,000? Yep, 32,000, no, 3,200. That's just insane. Okay, now that I've showed you how to work around with the My Collections tab and how to craft and disenchant cards, let's go and create our own deck, shall we? Just simply click on the nice button there, and then you can choose between what kind of heroes you want to create a deck for. I always pick one for a paladin because ethereal stuff is just awesome, in my opinion. For the comparison of the arena, as I said earlier, it gives you 3 different cards to choose from. To get a similar experience, simply click on suggest a card and you'll be presented with 3 different cards to choose from. This is pretty much exactly how Arena works. Presented with 3 cards, and then you have to choose the best of the 3. And each one that you go through will give you a different selection of 3 cards each time you click on one, until you come up with a grand total of 30 cards, which is the deck maximum. Every single card that you add has its own mana cost, as I said earlier, which is represented with the mana cost curve, as seen here. The more cards that you put in with a certain amount of mana cost, the higher that bar will rise. So if I put in more 3 cost cards using the filter system down here for no random reason, I'll get a spike in the 3 cost mana cards. If you can't be bothered finishing your own deck, just go down to the bottom and you're presented with, you only have such and such cards in the deck right now. Because you do not have 30 cards, you cannot use this deck. You need to have 30 cards in order to use it. If you can't be bothered doing that though, just simply click yes for it to finish automatically, and it'll do such. And the game will then fill up your deck until it has 30 cards. If you want to do it all manually though, you can just click no and save it for later to add to it when you want to. However, because you do not have a full deck at hand, if you come with me to the play area, it will be crossed out because there is cards missing, and you will not be able to use it. Okay, now that I've pretty much gone over the fundamentals of Hearthstone, let's go in and have our first game then, shall we? Let's go in and just have a casual game because I don't really particularly want to affect my ranking. So once you click on what kind of gameplay you want to do, it will then find you an opponent with this rather fanciful spinny rotisserie. And once you find an opponent, it will always come up with where the opponent. These little comical titles there, when I first started playing this, I always assumed that you'll get an opponent that was representative of those titles, but nope, you'll receive where the opponent every single time. Though it is kind of funny how Blizzard went through that with the effort to put in the other titles. Okay, so this is what you're presented with at the beginning of each game. Because I go second, I have 4 cards. The person who goes first gets 3. If you go second, you get 4 cards, and you also get the coin, which can be very useful. Which can be extremely useful if you use it correctly. However, I feel I probably might be needing that, or perhaps not, depending how this goes. I'm running out of time, so if you're not happy with the current card that you have, you can mulligan if you so wish, or you can choose which one you want to keep. I want to keep the leopard gnome and draw a new card. Okay, that's a bit more stronger. As you can see here, I get the coin, which costs 0 mana cost, and I can use that to gain 1 more mana crystal. Okay, he draws a card first and deals 1 direct damage to me, alright. I'm going to draw my leopard gnome for 1 cost and then end my turn. I like the maps of Hearthstone, I'll give it that. Mostly everything in Hearthstone's maps is interactable. For example, I can click on this gem here and it would fall out. There's also a little nice fire down here. I can light that up and have some marshmallows whilst we're having a game. Most of Hearthstone's maps have that sort of interactability, and I do appreciate the effort into going in that sort of. I appreciate the effort that they went through the effort of doing that. There we go. Okay. It's now my second turn, and because it's my second turn, I've gained 1 more mana crystal. Until it keeps on going over turn until you get to your 10th turn, to which you will then have 10 crystals. And then it will keep on going from there until one of you eventually loses. Over here is your card deck, and if you hover over it, you get a nice representative of how many cards you have left. I've got 24 cards left. He has 25. If you draw all your cards, you then start taking fatigue damage, which then racks up 1 by 1 each turn that is ended. If you hit fatigue, you take 1 damage. If you hit fatigue again, it'll take 2 damage, and it'll keep on going up 1 by 1 until you eventually die or your opponent kills you. You also get to see your opponent's mana with the little gem up here and how much cards they're currently holding there. Over to the left here you can see the recent happenings that have been happening during the game, with all the events that's been carrying on. For example, what's killed what, who did what, what's been going on, and such and such. Okay, because he's drawn the taunt card, I can't attack anything but the taunt card. So how do I get around that? Well, I have got 3 mana. I've got a card here that gives I could give this card here, this minion here, +1/1. That goes for +1 to its damage and +1 to its health, and also the taunt ability, which could eliminate this taunt, but that could leave me vulnerable to the rest of his cards, with the 1 card I have remaining, which will be this one. Or I could throw down the Harvest Golem and still not be able to do anything at all. So what I'll probably have to do is throw the coin, give the 1/1 plus taunt, get rid of their taunt, and then end my turn. And then after that, see if I can throw down the Harvest Golem and something else after that. As you can see, we're going back and forth, and that's pretty much how the game functions. If everything goes quite well, you'd be surprised at how fast-paced this game can really be. It can be a bit slow, but depending on certain decks, for example, if you're a beat-down aggro deck, you're dealing out damage all the time. But if you're more of a control deck, it's more of gaining control of the board and making sure that your opponent cannot get minions on top on their side of the board. So you become board dominant, or you're able to survive a lot more whilst they're picking up the field. Okay, what can I do here then? I can give this card a Divine Shield, which makes it immune to damage for 1 hit. Afterwards, it can then be destroyed like any other. For example, give it a Divine Shield, have it attack that card. It takes no damage, but it loses its shield. However, I could be very cheeky and give it another Divine Shield if I so desired with that card. Because I have 2 mana left, I can choose to use my hero ability, which I think I may choose now. As you grow more accustomed to Hearthstone, you'll be able to predict how players will play certain heroes. For example, I can predict that this hero, the priest, will maybe use a certain card to double its health, which will then double its damage. There's a specific card in the priest deck where the attack damage is always what its health is. And I remember using that same deck where I would double the health and therefore double its attack, and it became incredibly annoying. I know that far too well. Okay. Let's go ahead and trade that for that. Throw my spell card into his face. Finish that off, and throw down my Leopard Gnome. Also got the game playing in the background. I might as well just go over my final thoughts on Hearthstone. To be honest, I like Hearthstone, I really do. I think it's a very charming game, and I very much do like its aesthetic and how fast-paced it can be, and just how drawn I am to the actual card game itself. However, I still have some criticisms about it. Well, I say a few. It was more like maybe just one. Because the other one was nullified after reviewing this footage post-editing. So, I'm not really happy with how arcane dust works in Hearthstone. Like, you craft a common card for 40 dust, but you disenchant that card for 5, and that payoff and that reward for disenchanting a card, it doesn't sit right with me. Because if you invest in that much into crafting a card, you should receive something more than just a measly 5 dust, in my honest opinion. Of course, that makes you be very cautious of what actual cards you craft. But at the same time, if you don't craft the right one, that's kind of it really, because unless you craft anything that's epic or higher, or rare or higher, you're not going to get much payback. If you decide, well, I don't want that card anymore, I'm going to invest it in somewhere else, well, That's a bit too bad, really, because if you invest in the wrong cards, you might end up with a loss than you do with an actual profit and benefit of getting the cards you wanted in the first place. The other bit of criticism I had before I previously nullified it was the extrapolation of a free-to-play route across all the different payment options in Hearthstone's microtransactions. That was before I realised that you could actually buy multiple quantities of the free-to-play route expert packs for 100 gold. Before editing this, I didn't realise that you could actually do that. So upon that revelation, I re-evaluated my opinion on that criticism. I know 100 gold for one expert pack does seem quite a lot, but there are daily quests out there that do give you 100 gold straight off the bat by fulfilling certain criterias, and if you stack them up over, say, a week, before you know it, you end up with maybe possibly 3 expert packs by the end of the week if you get a good enough daily quest, or if you hit really high in the arena. So that's kind of why that nullifies my previous opinion on Hearthstone's microtransactions. But now that I discovered that you can now add different quantities to how much you can buy with the free-to-play route, that is now kind of good for me. I like that option. And as a closing matter, Hearthstone will be receiving a single-player update sometime later on this year. It's not been announced when, at least not at the time recording. It's called the Curse of Naxxramas, and it's, like I said, there's a single-player campaign as a sort of adventure mode that will be added to Hearthstone, and with it comes several different cards and a new hero and a new map as well. Specific details on this new adventure mode can be found in the description below. It will be released on the PC version, obviously, as well as Mac, and also on the iPad version as well. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that has been Hearthstone Heroes of Warcraft. It is available on PC, Mac, and now on iPad. It will soon be coming to Android and iPhone later on this year. I believe it'll be summer. Thank you for watching, everyone, and I'll catch you next time.
Reporting for duty. Last warning.
This is my responsibility.
Catch! I fight.
For justice.
Is someone injured?
To battle.
I fight. Catch!
For justice.